Tsunami warnings are in place across the Pacific after an underwater volcano eruption caused tidal waves to hit Tonga. Satellite images captured the eruption, which was followed by a huge plume of ash, steam and gas.
This is the moment the underwater Tonga Hapai volcano erupted, located off the coast of the Pacific nation of Tonga. It was an explosion so powerful it triggered tsunami waves across the island's shores, forcing residents to scramble to higher ground, while large traffic jams formed as people tried to flee. Waves swept through homes, churches and shops as locals were left facing a near-total power blackout. It's said to have been one of the biggest eruptions to date.
This is absolutely unique in my experience. You said, I mean, I've lived in Tonga for 5 years, worked in the Pacific and on tsunamis for 40 years. And whereas Tonga and that area of the Pacific, we know there are tsunamis, there hasn't been an event from a volcanic eruption and such an explosive eruption previously.
The eruption was reportedly heard as far as New Zealand and Australia, and tsunami alerts are in place for parts of the west coast of the United States.
Tsunami advisory is just a sort of thing, it's a warning to be aware rather than a statement that something...
10 minutes later.
We turn now to that rare tsunami advisory for the entire North American west coast from Alaska to California following this massive underwater volcanic eruption in the Pacific caught on satellite off the islands of Tonga. And take a look at these images from Pacifica, California, showing waves crashing into the shoreline. Miles of beaches along the coast closed today as residents were told to stay away. And a top seismologist calling this a once-in-a-decade event. Here's ABC's Zareen Shah.
Tonight, a massive underwater volcanic eruption triggering tsunami advisories up and down the entire west coast of the United States. The National Weather Service's tsunami warning system urging residents to move to high ground.
5 minutes later.
I'm Kira Clapper from the NBC Bay Area studios. We continue to follow breaking news this morning. A tsunami advisory has been issued for the west coast of the U.S., including here in the Bay Area, following an undersea volcanic eruption in the South Pacific. This is time-lapse video of the volcano erupting near the island of Tonga. It erupted for about 10 to 15 minutes and threw ash plumes over 8 miles high. That's according to the Tonga Geological Services. It sent a wall of water rushing toward the island nation as well as American Samoa. We recently into our newsroom have new video from Twitter showing extensive flooding. This is in Tonga's capital. You can see inside this church just getting completely flooded. Homes and businesses are under feet of water. Officials there say they do have extensive damage, and it's still unclear whether any people have been hurt or killed by the waves. We are waiting information on that. Here locally, California, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and British Columbia are all under this tsunami advisory. This is a live look for you. We have crews in the Santa Cruz Harbor where we have been seeing the water come up this morning. They reached high tide within the last hour, and we are seeing police activity there. First responders coming out to the harbor, getting people off their boats and out of the water.
A few minutes later.
Meteorologist Aaron Peck with a closer look at that tsunami advisory.
Yeah.
What's the latest, Aaron?
Here's the thing about that tsunami advisory. If you read the fine print on it where it tells you, normally these things are neatly bracketed. It starts at a certain time, it ends at a certain time. Not this one. This one goes until further notice. And it's not only here in the Bay Area, it's the entire coastline, Mexico down to San Diego. This is kind of an unprecedented event in terms of our experience with an underwater volcano being able to do something like this. But here's the best way to understand why we're not out of it yet. This is the tide chart coming into San Francisco Bay. The blue wavy line shows you what high and low tide we're going to be no matter what. The red line on here shows you where the actual wave heights varied from that. And right there, starting at about 6 in the morning, you can see the big variations. Here's what's interesting. While the variations are not quite as extreme, they haven't gone away. And there's another high tide coming at 11:45 tonight. Now, here's the way you can forecast this. That high tide at 11:45 is not going to be as high as the one that we had this morning around 9 o'clock. Right as the wave energy got here, that was like the perfect convergence. Just as the wave energy from the tsunami got here, we were experiencing high tide. That's why we noticed this as much as we did. Tonight at 11:45, we could have another round, and that's why this is in effect until further notice. Much more on this, guys, to play out over the next few hours. I'll be back with our forecast coming up in a bit. For now, Brian, back to you.
Before high tide this morning on the West Coast, and we have lots of new video from all along the Bay Area coastline today. This video from the North Bay. You can see the waves hitting the Sonoma County coastline. Of course, you can't associate a single piece of video with a tsunami wave. High tide was also off. That is really not a smart thing to do when there's a tsunami warning, what you're looking at right now. But from Bodega Bay, you can even see a boat out there getting rocked by the waves, plus lots of people that are watching them slam against the coast. And here's some wild shots out of Pacifica. Check it out, the waves crashing right over the seawall. But again, a part of this is due to the fact that we had pretty high tide this morning. And it's all spilling onto the roadway there.
Look at the scene in Santa Cruz at the Municipal Wharf. You can see that high tide heading in, some minor flooding in the area as well, right there on the beach. And take a look at this.
Later.
Franco, we're still following the tsunami advisory that's in effect for the entire U.S. West Coast. This after an underwater volcano in the South Pacific exploded in a violent eruption. We want to show you some new video of that eruption right now. This satellite imagery shows the massive ash cloud and gas steam rising from the volcano. You can see that right there. Now, a tsunami has already hit Tonga's largest island, Tongatapu. Right now, it's unclear how much damage was done, but that video is incredible to see that. And let's look live right now outside here in the Bay Area, where that tsunami advisory is still in effect all along the northern California coast. If you're located in a coastal area, you're being asked to stay off the beach, out of harbors, and out of the marinas. Strong currents, hazardous to swimmers, boats, and coastal structures are possible. And in the past hour, we've learned that the Golden Gate National Park Service has closed all beaches and access points until further notice. I also want to show you some video. This was out of Tiburon, taken earlier this morning from our sports director's wife, Vern Glenn's wife, Nicole, and you can see the water there just kind of rising. She mentioned that this was nothing she's ever seen before in that area, and it came pretty quickly, and at one point you could actually see boats off in the distance just clanking and moving around in that video. We wanted to show you that. Again, that's from Tiburon earlier this morning. And here's some video also we have out of Santa Cruz. You can see major flooding near a marina down there as well. We're still looking at Tiburon. We're still looking at the water in that area. But now here's the video out of Santa Cruz. There's plenty of this posted on social. You can find that at KPIX TV. But flooding reported in that area. And you can see in that neighborhood area near a marina, there is a significant amount of water there in front of homes, near cars, flooding. This is the Santa Cruz area. And again, people out there just kind of observing what's going on. So we are continuing to stay on top of this situation. The tsunami advisory is still in effect, and we don't really have any word how long that advisory will continue. From speaking with experts earlier today, likely for several hours, and you can see that there with that flooding in the Santa Cruz area. So just be cautious and be aware that if you are headed out, to stay away from coastal areas or harbors
harbors or marinas because of that. We do know that there are closures in place, as we just mentioned, near beaches. There's closures near the Berkeley Marina as well. The road right in front of there is completely shut down also. So you're looking live now at Muir Beach. Closures are in effect until further notice. And again, this is due to the tsunami advisory along the Pacific West Coast, all the way from Oregon, all the way down to the California-Mexico border, and of course right here in the Bay Area. And we've been monitoring this for most of the morning to see if there is any significant damage. But as we showed you in video from Tiburon and in Santa Cruz, that there is some flooding, especially in the Santa Cruz area. We saw that in that video, and you're looking live right now just as we take and keep a close eye on what's going on our coastal areas and communities.
Replace your notebooks and printed documents with Remarkable 2, the only tablet